Dominik Szoboszlai. What is there left to say about this kid that has not been analysed already online? Well, there is plenty to look into, at least, on the surface of things, but also a little bit deeper on this Liverpool guy, this Liverpool lad, this guy who is now a Scouser by proxy. Welcome back to the Laurence McKenna channel. It's good to have you guys. If you hadn't already hit subscribe, that's absolutely fine. If you want to at the end of the video, I really appreciate it. And those people already have, welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm excited by this. I think a lot of people feel that there's a weird element to obviously suddenly, not even out of the blue, but suddenly choosing to drop 60 million on a player, and obviously with a release clause as well, and needing to trigger that release clause in a certain period. I think Liverpool had to act if they really wanted their guy. And what I got the feeling with this transfer was that they've gone down a list of people, they've looked in the pros and cons, obviously, like anyone does in signing players, of signing those players, and they definitely feel like Dominik is one of the stronger prospects. He's played a majority of the Leipzig games this season. He's been an incredible prospect in terms of what it is that he brings to the side. He's adaptable. He's played in multiple different positions for them this season. He's been influential in almost all of those positions very continuously. And the adaptability is something that seems to be a huge pull for Liverpool right now, which is why they're willing to spend so much money on this young Hungarian who is now, well, another form of red, right? Because I think Hungary also play in red as well. And obviously RB Leipzig also got their red kit as well. He does play in the number 17. Be interested to see whether he changes numbers or whether Curtis Jones is willing to give up that number 17 that has been his for such a long time. That's kind of a small detail, but partly also alluding to the fact that he's coming into a Liverpool side that are changing right now, that are moving on from certain old shapes, old needs, all these kind of things. And people like Curtis Jones were part of the old, but they're also part of the new. But part of the old and part of the old issue for Liverpool was they weren't weak on the right central midfielder position, but it was certainly in need, should we say, of some form of revamp up there at least. Because they've got, obviously, if you look in this formation that I've got here, Szoboszlai could play there, Henderson could play there, Harvey Elliott played there for a couple of games. You can rotate other players in and out of that, but really there were only two players that played in there, right? Henderson and Elliott. And I'm sure there are other people who say, oh, Trent Alexander-Arnold was right. He was right midfield, he wasn't right centre midfield as part of a three, or even as really part of the system. He plays right of a two, and right of a double pivot, or right of a box is very different to right as this 8 position that we probably see Szoboszlai playing in as well. Now, part of that obviously brings up the fact that Liverpool are moving on from a previous shape and they're looking to be a lot more adaptable. It actually attacks a problem, and I guess not even a problem, like a system that people want to try and implement in the Premier League right now, where we're basically looking at managers making much more mobile, but also much more attacking, much more aggressive midfields. Players who are able to deal with problems on the fly, spot problems as they go and deal with those on the fly as well, but also be incredibly specialised in what it is that they're asking those players to do. So when you're looking at Szoboszlai, when you're looking even at a McAllister or a Tonali or a Mason Mount or any of those players who have come into these kind of adaptable 8-6, possibly more attacking 8, or like a floating 8 as some people also call it, what is it that those guys are bringing to the teams? Well, first of all, if you look at a team sheet, you're looking at a team that basically you don't quite know where someone's going to play. So could Szoboszlai be playing there? Could he possibly be playing? And this is an interesting one with Salah off the front guy, Szoboszlai on the right, and then this adaptable triangle, which you can see him kind of fitting into, could also be part of it. That could especially be important, by the way, when Trent Alexander-Arnold drops into midfield and Szoboszlai needs to be a little bit wider, or at least a little bit more smart about where he is. There's a lot of different adaptability to this guy that I'll be interested to see how he pairs up with the likes of Trent, the likes of Hakpo, especially the likes of Salah, who's obviously signed that long-term contract at Liverpool as well. And also, of course, a huge part of this is a big African Cup of Nations year. Salah will be going off for 5, maybe 6 games that, you could have even more in there where it's like there's cup games, there's Champions League games, all those kind of things. I don't know if it covers Champions League games, but it covers definitely cup games, okay? And you need someone who's good out on the right. Look at the other options in the side. You've got Luis Diaz. Don't particularly want to move him from a very strong position. Same with Diogo Jota. Seen him in that position. Not 100% sure on him there. Probably think he's stronger on the other side. Cody Hakpo, would you really want to put him there? Probably not. And the same with Nunez as well. Probably the same with a number of other players in the squad as well. The strongest of these would probably be at this point Szoboszlai. So looking at that as an option, first of all, very much excites me. It gives Mo Salah a little bit more adaptability. Last season we saw, early on in the season, Salah got pushed out quite a lot, actually, to the far like to get talk in his boots almost, and it took him out of the game way too much. He wasn't as involved as he needed to be. He didn't get as many passes or rotations as he needed to get, and as much as Trent and Hendo were supportive of that, the rest of the system kind of let Salah down. And even then, he had quite a prolific season, so there's something good about that in the first place. But Szoboszlai were kind of, Salah is a guy who could drop in. Now, would Liverpool ever really play that? I'm not really sure, because Cody Gakpo likes to drop deeper. Nunez likes to go out there. Possibly you then play Salah through the middle there. You've then got like a 4-2-4. You've probably even then got, you could go box, box, box. You really go 3-box-3, as a lot of people are saying it right now. That's also interesting, and obviously Alisson pushes up in all of these. Virgil van Dijk through the middle, and then Robertson as well. But what we're seeing is kind of a changing of the guard, right? And within that changing of the guard, I think there are old pieces and new pieces that we're trying to fit into an old system. So old pieces going into a new system, and new pieces going into an old system, or wiping out that old system. And the more pieces that Liverpool acquire as part of a transfer strategy, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Thuram, possibly a centre-back in there. I'd be interested to see. Obviously, Liverpool have to be very conscious of the numbers that they've got in terms of homegrown players and those kind of things. So how many more kind of not homegrown players, I want to call them foreign, but that sounds a little xenophobic, but it isn't, players you sign, be interested to see. But it'll be interesting to see what Liverpool do about that, and whether they'll just kind of have to sell one to bring one, if that makes sense. So there are all these kind of numbers and quotas that Liverpool need to fill, and it's worth kind of looking at that as well right now. But looking into this in terms of where he will play, I think he plays there. I think his strongest position is probably in this position, right? Even if McAllister drops a little deeper and we've got someone like a Szoboszlai as an 8, there's a possibility Liverpool field him as a 10, but I don't see why you'd field him as a 10. Possibly he kind of acts in that like weird Naby Keita transitional role, but even then, you're possibly saying there's a stronger overall team orientation. There's times where he'll find himself in that position, sure, but I don't think that's the long term for him. Cody Gakpo obviously dropping deeper probably also gives you a good look into what Nunez might be doing in this side as well. Gakpo is obviously someone who likes to drop deeper, but now they've got McAllister and Szoboszlai. It really, they were talking about Gakpo becoming this 9, and obviously Liverpool's previous number 9 was an iconic one. Roberto Firmino is a club legend. It was someone that played such a unique number 9 role for Liverpool. How could you replace that? Well, you don't, right? What you do is you move on in terms of shape, and that was what Firmino facilitated so much of, as did Mane, right? Liverpool are finally finding, or at least looking at finding, that shape. And they were alluding to this last year, signing Carvalho. That's that transitional 8 come 10 in this kind of area. That's what McAllister is trying to fulfill as well, unless he drops a bit deeper. That's definitely what Szoboszlai will be trying to fulfill as well. I'm grabbing all sorts of weird pieces here. And it's kind of interesting to see where Liverpool are going with this. It doesn't fix all their issues by any means, right? Trent's still dropping into midfield. Konate still needs to be aggressive. They don't have a left centre-back, and Robertson often finds himself in an average position around there. Jota, fantastic out on this wing, but Luis Diaz, is he going to start there? Is Nunez going to start there? Is Gakpo going to start and cut in? Does Gakpo start a little bit deeper? There's a lot of what I feel feels like congestion in this midfield. But actually, I feel like that's also partly that we're thinking it needs to go 4-3-3 and all these pieces need to fit quite comfortably together. I watched a really interesting piece on South American football the other day, and I can't remember which team it was. It might have been Flamengo, it might have been someone else, right? But they were talking about how they overload aspects of the pitch at different times to basically get massive numerical supremacy. And that's what a lot of managers are kind of playing in the Premier League now, right? It's a numerical supremacy game. Look at Liverpool's numerical supremacy in so many positions on the field. I know that's possible with a City. It's possible with, probably just possible with a City. Maybe Arsenal also had numerical supremacy in terms of that 2-2-6 they played. But Liverpool are almost looking at players who, Szoboszlai, by the way, great at pressing shapes. Not necessarily the guy that always wins the ball back, but a great pressing shape kind of guy, and someone that you're fascinated, first of all, to see how he brings that energy that I think Jordan Henderson always brought, and some of Jordan Henderson's best games were his most energetic games, but also his most thoughtful games. And then secondly, on top of that as well, right? Look at the fact that if you have a Mo Salah in that side who really is looking at getting more goal opportunities, Szoboszlai can be playing a ball through to him, like he's been doing at RB Leipzig. He's clearly got more goals and he has assists so far. Look at people signing people like Maddison, someone who's not shy of a goal, but also someone who loves to put on a goal as well. Liverpool clearly looked at all their options and went, what is it that we've got here? What is it that we can actually get? And actually, are any of these huge names that we're trying to get in the Maddisons and any of these kind of guys really the option that we want? Now, obviously, that's interesting because Liverpool probably would play well with a Maddison or someone like that. But Szoboszlai is a slightly more adaptable player. He's not exactly like, overloading it in terms of goals or assists. I think he can definitely up those numbers. And I think Liverpool will be very buoyed by the fact that the RB system, as much as people don't really like RB Leipzig or Salzburg, or probably any other ones as well, maybe New York, I don't really know, aren't exactly, that they are basically, whilst they are these kind of franchises, they're also systems and academies of excellence that people like Liverpool have farmed before. Mane passed through there. Obviously, it was also Keita that passed through there. They were looking at Timo Werner for a little while. I'm sure I've missed a name, but obviously Konate as well. So there's big names for Liverpool that have passed through these academies and learned important aspects of the game that have really just stuck these guys out. Now, obviously, Liverpool could have gone a step below RB and gone, hey, we want this guy from the start. But this is kind of the proving ground for these guys. Bundesliga guys that come to the Premier League, they need to have certain qualities. It's not, you can't go, that league doesn't convert. It's, that league doesn't convert when they don't fulfill X quality. There have been plenty of players that have come from the Bundesliga, or they're here, right? So looking at Szoboszlai, looking at where he plays, I think most people look at him as this 8, floating 8, possibly slightly even more attacking 8, but a controlling 8. Someone who I love. He looks so light on his feet. He loves little dinks around the corner. He loves little tricks. He loves to take people on. He loves to go past a man and kind of carry the ball forward, but also to hook up with passing. So when I say carrying, I don't mean like he's some sort of like sprinter with the ball. By no means would I count that out. But he's someone who loves to try a little cheeky pass, see if it comes off. In a Bobby Firmino type manner? Not exactly, but are we looking for people who are a little bit more, take the ball by the horns, do something a little bit cheeky, take a risk out on the field? Absolutely. You could argue that Harvey Elliott and Jordan Henderson were quite conservative picks in those areas. Henderson and Harvey Elliott, brilliant technically. There's so many things you can praise about them, but they're not Szoboszlai. First of all, Szoboszlai is also big. He's also got his huge physique, which goes with him as well. And I think he's seen as a strong player that Liverpool will be able to rely on. It seems that Liverpool are looking at profiling stronger players as well. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to win everything. It doesn't mean that he's going to be the kind of guy who just goes through everyone. He's not a Konate by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, it's good to have someone in the midfield who people are scared of, who does have a little bit of, should we say, a physically imposing manner. In fact, if you go on his profile here, go back one, back one, he's 187. So he's like 6'1.5". Sorry, 6'1", maybe 6'2". It's actually quite big for a midfielder in any game, but he's big, Then on top of that, I would also add that he does like to take a pot shot at goal. He's had quite a few pot shots at goal. I think Liverpool are going to stomp that out fairly quickly. There's no point in taking pot shots, although Naby Keita, he actually had a fairly good return from distance, and he actually had some fairly good distant goals from Liverpool as well. Will Szoboszlai try and fulfill a little bit of that? Is that similar to the Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain profile that Liverpool were looking at a couple of years ago as well? There's all these kind of questions as to what kind of cookie cutter he fits into, but actually he's quite a unique player. And if you look at what his previous coaches as well said, they said he had a great application, great demeanour, great way of applying not only himself, but also for the team as well. And, as much as we might criticise taking pot shots from distance, you're still thinking of certain aspects of what's going on in the game, right? So I'm interested to see what Liverpool do with him. I'm going to put it this way. I think he fulfills a lot of what Liverpool are trying to achieve in the midfield. He is energetic. He's cheeky. He's got a pass on him. He hooks up play really well. I'm looking forward to seeing how they play him, field him. I'd love to know your comments down there below. But I think a key part of this is out with the old, in with the new. Now, that's not to say they get rid of everyone at once. Virgil van Dijk's still there. Henderson's still there. Obviously, people like James Milner have moved on, but Salah's still there. They've still got experienced Robertson, Alisson. There's loads of these kind of guys on the side, right? Can I put it this way? If you're bringing out older players like that, right? You need someone who's going to come in with a demeanour. He's a young guy, comes from a fairly religious country. You know what I'm saying at this point. There's an interesting aspect that Klopp always tries to profile. Guys who he knows he can trust, I guess from a moral perspective, or feels that he has a good compass on where and how to motivate those guys. And Szoboszlai has spoken about this. He's spoken about how he's so in awe of Klopp and the way that he motivates these kind of people. So I think it's going to make for great fun in watching him. I also think it's one which is a club builder. It's a kind of a dressing room builder. He's clearly got confidence. He's clearly got a bit of swagger about him. Liverpool love those kind of guys, not only the current iteration, but Liverpool in general just love a bit of swagger. They've loved it in the Scouse generation, but they also love it in foreign players who come in as well. So I'll be really interested to see how he plays. I think overall he has this full package, which is why Liverpool are willing to pay so much money for him and put 60 million down on a midfield player that they feel is probably the future of this midfield. You know, you don't buy someone for 60 million to bench them in the long run, at least. You know, you let them develop and bed in and learn the system, especially with someone like Nunez. I guess the big question is, do you play Gakpo or Hakpo or Nunez, right? Do you play Luis Diaz or Jota? Do you play McAllister or Thuram? Do you play, you know, I'm assuming we get Thuram at this point. Do you play Fabinho or do you play Thuram in that position? He's not a holding six, and I think I'd be silly to misprofile him as such. He has played in that position. I don't know if Liverpool will profile him as such. I don't know if Liverpool would maybe trust him in that profile, even though he is mobile and all these kind of things. So I'd love to know what you guys think. A lot to think about and digest in this particular formation, whether Szoboszlai is particularly progressed or whether there is a bit of, you know, more like that maybe. Yeah, there's that kind of formation, or really that, if we're looking at it. But Trent will be drifting around. What he'll also do is, being on that side, he's going to give Trent a huge amount of freedom. Trent can sometimes switch forward. Szoboszlai can sit back a little bit because he's a natural midfielder who hooks up with other people. What Trent often loves is small passing sequences, should we say, where it's like, hey, what can we achieve here? You know, what can we achieve with this small passing sequence that we've got? And he loves to play off other guys. Szoboszlai is definitely one of those guys. Pass around the corner, move, pass, move. There's lots of little hookups that I think we're going to get here with Trent, with Fabinho, with McAllister. We're looking at the shapes, we're looking at the movement, the intelligence, all these kind of things. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I think it gives Trent a huge amount of confidence. I think it gives Salah a huge amount of confidence. I think it's also extra protection for Konate as well in terms of the physicality and winning the ball back high up the field in terms of tackling. The only aspect I'd say, which I feel is a downside at the moment, is probably the fact that when he hits a certain ceiling, there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in him. He's, you know, pretty much, as I can't say that I purport to know about this, like, you know, in great depth, but loads of people say he drags Hungary to a lot of things. We used to have a Hungarian player I really wanted to do well. He didn't do so it was Nemeth, Christian Nemeth. He never got to the point that I wanted him to. I'd love to know where he is now. I will Google that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll chat to you in a little while. Much love.